Good evening, everyone. I'm Neha, Ambassador of Change for GETI, that is Global Education and Training Institute, founded and conceptualized by Dr. Sunita Gandhi with the vision of disrupting education, the education movement as we know it. We also organize in service and pre service training for teachers so that they can actually help us spearhead this disruptive education movement. And alongside, we also organize detox where we invite educators, policymakers, researchers from around the world to discuss various best practices in education with us. Today, this evening, or I would say this afternoon, for our guest, I am very honored and welcome and honored and humbled to have with us Mr. Thiago Beden, who is a researcher at the Federal University of Pernambuco in Sweden. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Thiago. Thank you so much for joining us today. And Mr. Thiago is from Sweden, so it's late afternoon maybe at your end. So very good afternoon to you, sir.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make small corrections. The university that I'm working is actually in Brazil. I actually
It's
study.
okay. I'm so sorry. My apologies.
No,
The university is in. Yeah.
in Brazil. In Brazil.
Okay, in Brazil. Okay. Thank
Yes.
you so much for the correction, sir. Thank
No,
you.
it's okay.
Uh,
It's because I work online. That's why. So yeah, I needed to explain
the
to you that.
confusion.
Yeah.
The confusion. It's absolutely okay. So, Sarah will be talking about sustainable development goals and nonprofit management. It's a very unique topic. So, would you like to explain to our audience a gist about this topic before we actually jump to your
Yeah.
presentation, or very unique presentation that you've made?
Okay. Yeah. So my name is Thiago. As I mentioned, I'm Italo-Brazilian in Sweden at the moment, and this part with the sustainable goals and non-profit, I actually started online. So I was doing more kind of activist part, helping some people online because I really got engaged with social media, even though I'm more like an enthusiast, but not really IT person or somebody who knows, data analysis or even algorithms about social media. But I really like that, so I started to do that, and with that, I try to connect some way with educational part because I think that I'm probably more connected with education, especially now that I'm trying to focus more on research because I do believe that's yeah you can manage both of them and can bring something very unique. So yeah, that would be it.
Absolutely.
And then you have the sustainable development goals, which are the goals from United Nations to make the world a better place, and talks about gender, food quality, uh, gender empowerment, and this kind of things. So yeah, very briefly, that I think is the best explanation that I can provide.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll just share your presentation. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, of course, no problem.
So, is the presentation visible now?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can see it. Thank you.
You can absolutely go on now and let me know when you want to change the next slide.
Of course. Yes. Yeah. So sustainable development goals and the non-profit management. As I mentioned, I did a previous master that was focused on sustainable development goals here in Sweden. It was a one-year master. So that's where I started to work with sustainable development goals. Actually, my background is law, and then also the non-profit management. This is a small resume. I think that it was already covered, so we can go to the next one. But yeah, I can say that I have a bachelor's in law. I have two masters, one that I'm finishing now, that's in global studies, and one that I did before, that's in peace and development work. And I have titles, Doctor Honoris Causa, because of the work that I was doing online. So I think that would be the overall. Okay, so Sustainable Development Goals. Sustainable Development Goals, also known as the Global Goals, were added by the United Nations in 2015. Is a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that by 2030, all people enjoy peace and property. The 17 SDGs are integrated They recognize the action in one area will affect outcomes in others, and that development must balance socioeconomic and environmental sustainability. So this part I actually got directly from the website, and of course I'm also citing I got from the UNDP website. And basically, what it means the Sustainable Development Goals is the goals from United Nations to make the world a better place, right? So it talks about 17 goals. Each goals they have their priorities. So for example, the first one is the most important. The 17 would be the least important, but that is just our order to really balance the things. But all of them need to be together in order to do that. So you have, for example, the 17th goal, 17th, it's about the partnership, right? So the partnership among the goals, I mean, definitely they're important because you need to be all together. But in the same end, you need to have the main focus, for example, no hunger, which is definitely one of the first ones. So you have all these things that really balance with them until you have others that are a bit more, let me say, bureaucratic or institutionalized. The Sustainable Development Goals, they actually were replaced in 2015 because you had the Millennium Goals that were before. They were changing the Rio uh, event. There was an event in Rio that they changed it to the new sustainable goals. I mean, the ones that we have now, right? Because soon it's going to be 2030. So basically, that's the perspective. It's a way to really focus on development, sustainability, and ways that promote, a world in which there was no war, there is no conflict, and these kind of things that also follow the ideas that United Nations have. So, in a very broad perspective, that would be talking about sustainable goals, but definitely there is way more to talk, especially if you talk to each one of them separately. Yeah, you can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so you have there sustainable development goals. As you can see, and I mentioned again, it doesn't mean that the goal 17 is less important than the one, but the priority is more important because, as you can see, there is some sort of order. So you have the non-poverty, which is the must, the one of the must, zero hunger, and then you go to others that are a bit more bureaucratic. So you can see that there is like a switch because, for example, if you take the peace, justice, and strong institution, focus more on the stability of a government, right? Don't talk about the person directly. And the 17, as I mentioned, it talks more about contract, which is partnership, partner for all the goals to be together. So that's why I mentioned that they work together, but it's important to say that the first ones, they are more focused on the human, the anthropological perspective, and the other ones, they focus more on this bureaucracy policy. So this is also very important to know. And yeah, you can go to the next slide, please. So yeah, I'm gonna talk a little bit about third sector. The third sector is actually everything that's connected to non-government actors, okay? Because we usually think about like private and public, right? And I think that's very important to mention when it comes to non-profit, because non-profit is a very complex field. And I noticed also, not just talking about the practical things that I did that I'm gonna try to focus on this presentation, but also a little bit of the study that I'm trying to gather knowledge on this and try to bring. Non-profit is always seen as more like focus on the sustainability, but people don't really think on the management, the business perspective about that. And of course, it plays a different role than a normal company or a normal store, right? Because you definitely have countries that people don't pay some specific taxes, or non-profit they don't have really a robust law when it comes to management. But still, you need to have some sort of management. You still have some sort of income. So these things are very important. That's why I also gonna look more a bit of the theory, but try to bring more into the practical sphere. So what's the third sector? Umbrella idea that get several types of organizations that follow different systems. So it's important also to mention that non-profit is not only in the third sector. Third sector is a big generic perspective that have all those groups that I mentioned that have a value-driven focus on specific goals, aiming on a specific political position. It could be related to a party, so a political party. Non-profit, definitely the focus here, needs to raise funds to generate investment in specific objectives, for example, social and environmental, or the SDGs, as I mentioned before. But this is important. Here they separate the non-profit from non-government, okay? Because you could have that you have some organizations that are non-governmental, but they are focused on profit. For example, some institutes. So non-governmental, even working closely with government, the management is independent. So yes, the non-governmental is just this fact that they work separately from the government, but yeah, they can focus on profit. And the other one is just the fact about non-profit, which I think is the basically perspective over NGOs and some civil societies. Next slide, please. Yeah, so you can go one slide back, please. Yes, thank you. Okay, so here just wanted to give a bit of examples and aims. So the third sector organizations include social enterprises and cooperatives, community and voluntary organizations, charities, private institutes, and think tanks and specific organizations that deliver public service, but are considered outside the government umbrella. So as I mentioned, it's basically everything outside the government umbrella, but as you can see, you also don't put like some private business there, right? You don't focus on that. So it's something away the public and private perspective. So you can see that there is some also aims. You have the first one, which is advocacy, where the organization seeks to change a policy or a law or a system, in place by the government. The campaign, where the organization wants to raise awareness about a specific issue. So, for example, a conflict of any sort, or the SDGs, right? Which is definitely the focus that I'm trying to bring on this research. For example, if you want to talk about a gender problem in a specific country or region or city, you bring the SDG number 5, which is the SDG of the gender inequality, and then you try to focus that and merge with the community situation, and also try to bring all the data from United Nations, so you can build that campaign. Then you have also handling and research, where those organizations research will investigate the specific subject of the organization, looking through a scope of academic research made relevant to the field. So this can also be seen, for example, in institutes, right? You have a lot of institutes nowadays that they focus on a specific research. I mean, it could be also, for example, with the COVID, right? You have these independent institutes that don't have any connections to any sort of university or government. And that's good as well, because they also consider third sector, right? So yes, you can go to the next slide. So, okay, I'm going to talk a little bit also about digital marketing, which is basically where I started everything. Important to clarify here, when I started to do these things, I did very informal, okay? Some people asked me at the time, if I wanted to give more in depth about, talk about these things, etc. And I think that also kind of gave me some light, to really learn a little bit about that and try to bring. But it's actually very interesting to mention, because trying to merge sustainable development goals with NGO, it's one thing. But when you try to focus on management, business, the bureaucracy, the problem about the things, there is not that much study on that, and the people that do actually are quite few. I mean, also to give perspective at the moment, I'm going to do my thesis. I'm planning to write about Syria and Lebanon, and I also going to try to focus on the management. But definitely in that case, I'm going to really look into the theory, and how to merge things, etc. But it's so interesting because even people who do management, you see that there is a lot of things when it comes to non-profit that's very blurry, because in a lot of countries, and I can say also for Sweden, because I was a co-founder in one organization here, there is no law. It's just like about you. So You follow the rules when it comes to, being a co-founder, etc., which was my case. But when it comes to really the management, it's up to you. So that's also another problem when it comes to non-profit, because you can have easily a researcher, activist, or people who promote anything, a campaign, you know, this kind of part. It's okay, but when it comes to the management, people really forget that you need to have accountant, a lawyer, a really structure, a board that you really know and trust these people. It's not just like for the sake of, oh, and this person do a good job, yes, but you also need to have this bound. So these things are actually the biggest thing that it's very relevant to bring about management of NGOs, and also focus with the sustainable development goals, right, to promote this kind of thing. So yeah, going back to the topic, sorry, I had to give a bit more in depth about the perspective. So digital marketing, it's a way to companies engage with the customer in social media. In the past, the model of marketing was emailing, direct marketing, uh, television marketing, radio, and other mechanisms. In the context of the World Wide Web, it was introduced advertisement. These types of marketing was too extensive and needed to be reshaped. They started to create digital marketing, which invokes strategies to invent the traditional marketing model. This model enables a more participative message sharing in the context of the internet due to the social media, bringing a new reality to promotion mixed reality. These realities of dimensions can be divided into read-only and interactive models. The interactive models is holistic, giving beyond just writing structures. These structures are the new concepts that enable other structures to come into existence. These structures are the new concept that enables other structures to come to existence. So one thing as well that's important when it comes to social media and social networks, uh, I mean, definitely you already had some production, so there's some people that write about how efficient they are, but now, and of course due to COVID, we're having a boom on research and people that try to really tackle this importance of social media within, any kind of promotion, not just non-profit. So I think it's very relevant to mention that, and definitely, I mean, we come from a world where we used to have telephones and even email and telemarketing. These kind of things still exist, but the focus is definitely social media. I mean, you go to YouTube nowadays, you have 3, 4 stops during any video that you go because there is marketing. You go to your email, sometimes you get those kind of like spam emails from the mailbox that you have, right? Because a lot of people they try to use public service such as Google or Outlook, and they also have some sort of marketing on them. So it's really interesting this how things are shaped today, and definitely, as I heard from a lot of people, and I can say even for myself, if you don't know how to manage social media, you your business is gonna tend to fail, because nowadays even for you to be local you need to have social media, due to also the COVID, as I mentioned, and also because of this urge that you need to know. And again, as I mentioned, for me it's just that I know how to handle these things. I learned how to handle, you need to take care about this, but more looking to a social science perspective, right? Because of my background, I know the IT guy, I know the guy who did specific courses on Google, even though I think it's also good, because if you really want to make a branding on the social medias or Facebook, whatever, you really needed to know about algorithms and how things work, especially when it comes to YouTube. So yes, you can go to the next slide, please. Yes, so here I bring a little bit about a paper that I found, just to give a bit more in depth how a society are changing, right? So practical experience, digital marketing millennial generation. Important factors for the subject of social networks and how to engage the old and the current generation of the millennial that's in the out for. So you have here 4 causes I'm talking about the millennial generation, but I think that that's actually applied for all of us today, because we are constantly on social media and we get bombarded by information every second, So I think that's affecting even older or younger generation. And this is kind of like the center of social media and social networks today as well, right? Especially when it comes to marketing. So you have the immediatism, the impact of the post, video campaign should be something that in just one click attracts immediate attention. So definitely, I mean, you can see that if you go to Facebook and you lost a post, sometimes you're never gonna find the post anymore, because the feeds are just going like second by second, and depends of how many people you follow and you have friends with. So if you have something that impact the person once, that's definitely the biggest impact that you can do, because internet's definitely about immediatism, about information marking that time. If you maybe later you remember and you want to check, probably you're not gonna find anymore. Only if you know where is it located, etc. And so this plays a very pivotal relevance on when it comes to how to engage people. Testimonial. Testimonial is the more professional and academically favorable people in the context in which the post is placed. The more, the more the chance, the more there is a better chance of credibility. Sorry for the misspelling there. So basically, it's about testimonial. So if you wanted to talk about, I don't know, something regarding space, right? You're gonna look for the owner of Tesla. That I sorry, I forget. Elon Musk. Yes, Elon Musk. If you wanted to look about environment, you're gonna go for Greta. So you have this kind of like people, that they really have this impact. If you want to look something for physics, I mean, of course, the person is not alive anymore, but it would be alive. You would, check something that Einstein did, etc. So the testimony of somebody on a specific subject, and if they are in favor or against, that also plays, an important role when it comes to the testimonial, because you follow more towards the credibility of the subject. Uh, the sociability is similar, but the sociability is about the friends and followers are the key to attract more people. This line follows the same basis of the testimony, but in a formal way. So yeah, that's I mentioned more informal way because it's the same thing as the testimonial, but the fact is about your family, your friends, that they have similar interests as you, and then you feel like, okay, if they're following that person, I'm gonna give some credibility and also look for that. And also the fact about, for example, Facebook, right? When somebody's following a page and they share whatever or they like it, it could also show on your feed. So that also plays a role, because you're gonna see what they're seeing. So yes. Then you have the cause, which is definitely I already mentioned, but it's that thing that really plays a role in your life. Like what do you like to talk about? Do you like to talk about math? Do you like to talk about the sustainable development goals, these sustainable goals specifically? Yes, and also very important, since I also mentioned the link between sustainable development goals. All the sustainable development goals, they are connected, obviously, because there are things that they're just intertwined, right? Like if you want to talk about hunger or in a country, that also connects to the government, which also connects to the peace and peace, justice, and strong institutions, 16. So the point here that is very important to mention, especially with the SDGs, is that you needed to have that SDG that really point the main direction of the organization. So if you're talking about gender, SDG 5, if from the SDG 5, then you cover zero hunger, you cover uh, climate action, which is another SDG. Then you can maybe use them. For example, if you wanted to apply for any fund of any sort, then you can maybe mention as a secondary. But it's always important to have the main ones. Even when it comes, for example, if anybody would like to apply for funds, which is something they're gonna bring up next. But just to mention quickly, you really need to have that SDG that goes that really stick to what you want to mention. That really focus on that. Next slide, please. Yes. So yes, I was just talking about education because I also saw that the organization is focused on education, and I want to talk about quality education. The part of teaching about digital marketing COVID period is important. So yeah, here's more about the sense of like how do you directly in social media marketing. I mean, I don't think there is any sort of secret, but it's just the way that you try as hard as you can to manage how do you speak in which social media, right? I mean, you cannot really speak informally the way you would do in Facebook when it comes to LinkedIn, or you wouldn't talk about all the topics in the world when you are talking YouTube, because YouTube you usually have a niche and you usually focus on a specific topic what to talk. So it's very important that, and yeah, also there I think the remember is very important. Ground criticism is not the same as being partial. Bringing data and fundamentals are the most important. So yes, whatever you have a discussion, I mean, I'm not saying that you need it to be all saint, and cover everything. I mean, of course, there's times that you want to have an argument with somebody, but always have this sort of backup argument and just be ready for criticism, because it is social media, it is social network. You're gonna have somebody one time that's gonna come to you and say, "No, I disagree with that," or say anything, and you just need to protect yourself as much as you can, so that also don't affect your image, right? Because uh, there's a saying that I heard once that it took so much for you to build yourself, to build a brand, right? But takes one mistake for you to just destroy it. And unfortunately, we have some cases that in history that happened, this kind of things. So I always try to balance as much as you can. There's no such a secret on this, but really try to not cover that much topics when it comes, for example, as you mentioned, there religion, politics, and footballs, especially in some countries that are more sensible with that. If you need to address, then you really need to bring a lot of data and stuff to back up you so that you can cover. Because again, as I mentioned, we are humans. I'm not gonna come here and say, "Oh, it's totally safe." In fact, I had another presentation with another organization. There was a girl uh, that she was talking about a topic, and she told me, "Yeah, but what if I say that in my country?" And I told her, "Look, there is no secret. If what you want to do, you really want to follow in your life, and your government, I also don't want even to mention the government, because I think that's not really relevant here, but just giving a perspective." I told her, "Can you manage what you want to do with your government current situation?" She's like, "No." Then I told her, you have two options, with my humble opinion, and that's going to be only my opinion. It's up to you. Or you try to move to a country where you can still do what you love, or you need to adapt. Because I'm not gonna come here and just tell you, no, no, go fight government, etc., etc. If you're telling me that the government's even, because she told me a very complicated situation, the government was really, you know, trying to go to her family, etc., etc. I was like, look, if you go to that, and I am in another place of the world, I'm not gonna come to you and say, you go fight. No, I'm gonna tell you, look for your safety first. Try to adapt if you want to keep in your country. If not, move to another country. Because I'm not gonna come here and say, no, just go for it. I'm not gonna advise nobody to harm themselves or their family. I mean, that's the most important thing. Then we go for what we really stand for, and try to adapt as well. I know a lot of people from a lot of countries that they move to a different country to do what they wanted to do in passion. And I think also I'm a case uh, of that, because I'm originally from Brazil. I live in Hungary, and now I live in Sweden. So you always try to find a better place, and that's part of human uh, this human social perspective, right? You always look for a better place. Okay, next slide, please. Yes. Okay, so we're going to talk about the fundraising briefly. It's a process of connecting with organizations and people, and to support a vision by donation. It is the art of the terminating and patience. Patience, since it depends from the country, perspectives, also possibility to handle online and presentially. I mean, fundraising is a very important thing, because it's those parts that it annoys a lot of people, because it's about money, right? It's about money, it's about bureaucracy. But I mean, even if you are a non-profit, you need money. You really need to know how you're gonna do something. You cannot just think like, oh, I'm gonna get a fundraising by anybody and everybody gonna have. No, you need to have also a accountant or somebody that knows finance that you really trust as well, right? That can follow with pay slips and all these kind of things, and also with any sort of like taxes, even though that I know some countries you don't need to pay taxes, but other types of taxes or contracts or memorandum of understanding. And yes, you really need to make like a plan for that. So the plan that I also give here, which is very general, and this is not just applied to non-profit and sustainable goals, but this applies to everything. You need to have a prospecting identity of the interest of the donor, cultivating the process of continuous communication to build trust. So you need to keep the person interested, right? Not just get the money and leave, because yeah, that's also not part of business, right? Like it's about the connection, about that you create with your partners or your clients, these kind of things. Asking when the connection time comes, you should ask for a donation. So definitely, you give the perspective. When you feel it's time, then you ask for the support. I mean, that's as I mentioned, very, very broad perspective about how to do sort of things. And then the stewardship, which is also very important. That is similar to the cultivating, but cultivation, sorry. But this is done after the donation has been done. So when the person donates to you, you just don't come to he or she and just say, okay, thank you very much, bye. You keep connecting because it's about the networking, right? Networking and building your brand. I mean, if somebody give you a fund, maybe who knows in the future they're gonna give you. If don't, they're probably gonna give you connection with somebody else because they're gonna feel comfortable enough to really come to you. So yeah, that would be the part. Next slide, please. Yeah. So when it comes to the fundraising conclusion, taxes need to work in quality education. People to learn about becoming self-driven, fundraising that can handle. So, for example, this is also other types of fundraising that I talk, especially with non-profit that you can do. You can do a crowdfunding. So I don't know, you provide some sort of tea or coffee in a place in your city. They can do that. Online fundraising, which was something that I was doing. So it's basically kind of like giving away GoFundMe sort of pages, right? That they get some percentage of what you get, but you promote some sort of donation, and they work kind of like some sort of social network platform that you can contact also other non-profits, board fundraising campaigns. So yes, about like public campaigns that you can do. Grant writing, which is definitely the most complex. Grant writing, sometimes in some countries you need to really have somebody that have a fundraising diploma, right? And it's about you go to United Nations, etc., or some countries or continents, and then you ask for some sort of grant. You need to fulfill kind of like a paper why you want to do that. You need to present documents, etc. So it's very bureaucratic. I think it's a very interesting job, but it's usually for non-profit organizations that have really a big structure and been a long time in the, let me say, market, right? Definitely it's not a market for non-profit, but just giving this sort of context so that you can be aware about the situation that you need already to have some projects that you already did something and you have data for that. So grant funding is something very, very complex. Fundraising letter and events, which is definitely you send to people about any events that you have, about funding, and you can do that. And ask people in person and over the phone and participate in events related to fundraising. So that's kind of like sort of telemarketing, or this kind of people that approach you in the streets asking for support. Smart non-profits use a mix of fundraising types to reach fundraising goals. So definitely, I mean, a lot of the NGOs, especially big ones, they have all this type of fundraising. Next slide, please. Okay, so yeah, I put there the reference. I think is also important from my side, right? Whenever we do a presentation, try to tackle all the data that I got, and also to cope, especially when I'm in Europe, I need to cope with the GDPR, So I really feel that since I also doing research, you always need to give the proper reference to the people that you're giving or the information from. Next slide. So yes, any questions? I appreciate the time. Thank you very much for everybody who's watching this. We will watch later. Thank you for Getty. Thank you for my colleague there. And yes, you have also the social medias there. If it's possible for you to put available later, uh, my
Absolutely.
yeah, I would like
Yep.
that.
That was a very wonderful presentation and very informative, as I mentioned earlier as well. And so, media in education is actually a very important, pressing topic that we also research into, and we also plan to, take this up at a larger scale.
Mhm.
What would be your thoughts on social media for school, and maybe imbibing social media in the curriculum of the school, and how does it affect children, and how does it not affect children, and is this a right thing, right now? Maybe. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's definitely important because you have a lot of I mean, not just talking about my topic here, but
Mhm.
also you have a lot of issue when it comes to bullying and the fact like I see a lot of kids even here in Sweden that they are so versatile in moving social media, but they are like 5 6 years and they already have all the social medias, and it's also a problem because in
Absolutely.
those social medias people are supposed to be old enough to be there, but they are not. So I
Yes.
mean, I think that you have a point, and maybe I mean, if a school is not really willing to give some sort of class or advice, also when it comes to bullying, this kind of thing, right? Which also can be a problem with the kids, if the kid don't have the best phone, whatever. But when it comes to like teaching people at least the kids to be aware of how to manage these things, because uh, especially when it comes to give example TikTok, right, which I didn't cover on my on the social medias that I mentioned. I see a lot of those kids that they do a lot of things to impress people, and that
Yep.
happens a lot also on Instagram, and they regret later. And I'm gonna say it's natural, like we have that, but some social medias is very complicated because if people see, they're gonna save it, they're gonna repost, and that's gonna it's gonna create a huge brand name for the person, because in the future, who knows, somebody's gonna come and say, I found this video from you doing this, and the company is gonna probably Google your name and just say, I found this video. Is that really you? But it was a yeah, but I can find your name, and I can say already. I know some cases. I mean, again, I don't want to expose the people, but I know some cases of some people that happened, and we need to teach that. Even I feel it's not just about the education, but more about just telling, please take care, and really take care, and
Absolutely.
not give so much space for the kids to really subscribe to Facebook, Instagram, etc., without the consent of the fathers. And yeah, I mean, as I mentioned to you, like now that you mentioned that, I I know a lot of cases, even people among my age, I'm 30, that they did things that they regret in the past, and that come back to them, even after like 10 or 20 years. So yeah, we need to have some sort of talk on that. It's not hard to talk about that, and a lot of people don't do that. And yeah, internet could be a dangerous place. You need to take care. You need to be
Absolutely.
aware.
And yes, there are pros, there are cons, and we need to weigh them, and hand social media to our kids in a way that the pros outweigh the cons.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a dark world. It's also a very vulnerable world, and there's still a lot of research and discussions that need to be done on this. So, and also you very kindly highlighted the importance of it in your presentation. Thank you for taking that topic up, and thank you for joining us today. Before I conclude the talk, would you like to, some parting words for our audience, for teachers, students, maybe?
Yeah, I think the most important, even from what you mentioned, I mean, it's about talk. I'm talking here as somebody who's not really IT. I mean, I have some friends who really have a deep knowledge even about social media and etc. and GDPRs kind of things. I feel more enthusiastic, and also because of my background in law, I like those things. But the thing about social media networks, people, they need to talk more about them, but also discuss more if if they are really favoring somebody or not, because you can take a lot of advantage from it, but you also can have a problem. And I can say, for example, my thesis from my previous master, I wrote about Angola. I couldn't go there because I had a situation with my documentation here, and had lockdown. and I did everything through Facebook. And I got a lot of people from Facebook. So I mean, you can take also good advantage of this thing. There is some light, there is something. So we really needed to try to bring this human perspective in check when it comes to social networks, etc. To don't be so open social media thinking that you all mighty protected, because I know some people who have that, they create a fake account and then they go just like, for example, Twitter have a lot, and that's not how it all works. Like, depending of who you say something, the person can ask for those social media about your email, about your address, so you really need to take care, but you also have light on it, and we need to just kind of give this standard thought about, like, trust your family, trust your peers, really, really talk, and yeah, give the best of you, or what you have. And if you one day you wanted to say to everybody, "Oh, I'm angry with everybody," which already happened even with me in some time in the past, you should not do that in the social media. That's not the place. You
I'm
hold for yourself. We are
well.
human. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you so much, Thiago sir, for joining us today with that informative presentation, your very kind presence, and for this wonderful and informative as well conclusion to the talk. Thank you for touching that very important topic today. It's very rare to come across such a unique and condensed topic the way you presented it. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining us this evening, your afternoon. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you around again. Have a good day.
Yes, you too. Good night for everybody in India there.
Almost. It's 6 over here right now, 6 p.m. Okay.
Here
Thank you. Bye.
it's true. Yeah. Thank you. Take
You're
care.
welcome.